further that people have comments on?
Unmute myself. I know we're going to be hearing about the Chestnut Hill commercial area zoning. We're going to be hearing about the ADU. I think the planning board ought to get a look at the planning that's being done on the Center Street parking lots. I mean, I didn't attend, but I watched the video of the meeting that was held at the Coolidge Corner Theater last fall. And it raises some very interesting opportunities, but also some very interesting issues about how do we manage parking there if that lot is developed. I think the planning board might want to keep its thumb on that
Yes, but Steve,
process.
with the warrant closing, might we do that after?
Okay, yeah, I mean, if there's if we have a schedule that's packed with other things that we have to do, I mean,
It's
I don't know
gonna
what
be packed because there are gonna be other meetings that people want to have. I believe that Jake Collins wants to have a meeting on the comp plan with the planning board as well, so
Excellent idea.
things are pretty busy.
Yeah,
But why don't I do this? Why don't I get an update on the Center Street parking lot? There's no planning board member on that committee?
I don't think so.
Let me write a note to get an update for you. And then I can present that update.
Great, thank you.
Could we also, when we get the calendar dates, maybe like have some long-term meeting planning in terms of topics to get, like, fit these types of things in?
Mhm.
Well, part of the problem, Andrea, is that we have to do it when people are ready. And sometimes the staff is not ready to come before you, and I have to wait until they say, I'm ready, please schedule me.
Okay.
Well, one thing I'd like to put on the future agenda has to do with our design review. When sometimes we have design review, and I had a number of residents complain to me about the planning board regarding we had approved a project on Glen Road.
Glenlyn Road.
Glenlyn Road, and then they came back with significant changes. Basically, the developer did whatever the hell they wanted to, and we were reluctant to enforce what we approved. And I think that it's worthy of the planning board to actually discuss what are the conditions in which we will insist that the design that was presented and approved actually gets implemented substantially. Because my experience on a number of times is that we're not very tough-minded about this. But that's just my view. And I'd be interested in what my colleagues think about this and how we give notice to the various attorneys who represent clients that they can't count on, just, you can snow them with a lot of, we thought this was the same, blah, 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 blah.
So just so I'm clear on the way the process works, we approve something typically in schematic design.
Mhm.
When they finish their documents and have them signed and sealed for building permit, that's when they go back to Polly. And Polly confirms that the drawings are in compliance with the decisions that we made. Are you talking, Blair, about changes after Polly has
Yes.
signed off in their drawings?
I'm assuming that Polly verifies the drawings that have been presented to us are in fact substantially the same, but that later on they change materials. And,
Part of, for instance, Glenlyn Road was not cited for design review.
I thought it was.
No, I looked that up. They did not, were not, I don't believe they were cited for 509.
I see.
I didn't,
So,
I mentioned that at a recent hearing that the topic I'd like around this that I think makes sense is value engineering. When the financials of a project change once they've got a permit, right? Because all of us who work in so practice, it goes out to bid. Sometimes the bids come in high and you have to find things to change.
Sometimes.
Well, nowadays it's every time. But what I guess my question would be, what would we as a group want to identify as triggers to come back to us, particularly around choices of materials?
Well,
And I think that is a good conversation for a future hearing because
That
that's the
particular-
reality, right? That's going to happen. But is there a trigger where it's substantially different enough that we'd want to talk about it?
Or where does the responsibility fall between the building department and the planning board, whether it's a design
Yeah.
issue, material issue.
That's why it'll be an interesting conversation. Maybe we can invite Dan Bennett too, because
As I recall, that project that changed color, the material changed color.
No, I thought it was more than that, Mark. I thought that they went in with a veneer stone where before, I thought they had clapboards, but I'm just going back by memory long ago. And I think they also had that ephes material on it as well. But, you know, we're getting into the substance here. And I think the point of it
Yep.
is, you know, do
the
they need to
agenda.
talk to us before they make the value engineer or come back with their hat in their hand and plead for forgiveness? I think that's the issue the planning board needs to discuss.
All right. Any other? If not, I'm going to open up for the public. Any members of the public who have comment on matters not on tonight's agenda, please use the react button at the bottom of your screen to raise your hand, and Cameron can unmute you or give you permission to unmute. Seeing none, why don't we start with our first case? These are tonight, what, 3 Board of Appeals cases. The first one is 29 Edgehill Road. I'm not sure if that's you, Polly, or you,
Well,
Cameron.
Cameron's going to be presenting all 3 cases.
Perfect. All right.
So
And I don't know, are the proponents for the case here? Do we want to make them?
yep. So
That
Frank
would
Dill is
be
here.
Frank Dill.
He's representing.
Okay.
He is free to unmute, but I'm going to introduce the case and I'll pass it over to him. So 29 Edgehill Road is constructing a new entry vestibule with a landing and steps out in the front. At a public hearing on January 13th of this year, the Preservation Commission approved the property with a certificate of appropriateness to replace that front vestibule and entry stairs. It is located in the Pill Hill Local Historic District. And they're proposing to replace the entry vestibule with a larger enclosed vestibule, new landing, and new stairs. It's going to increase the FAR from 0.594 to 0.599, which is an expansion of the pre-existing nonconformity. So they're just looking for special permit relief on that floor area ratio and the front yard setback, both of which being pre-existing nonconformities. So I'm going to pass it off to Frank Dill to expand further.
So they would be getting relief under section 6, is that right? 48,
Yeah.
section 6.
Yep, section 6.
And this is the Brown's house. I see Carrie Brown has her hand up. Could you also give her access if she'd like to be able to speak and turn on her camera?
Great. Mr. Chair and members of the board, for the record, I am Frank Dill of 27 Leslie Road in Belmont and the architect for the proposal representing Bigmeister Design Build. The homeowners, Sean and Carrie, who are here tonight, have lived in this home with their families since 2009 and plan to continue living there for the foreseeable future. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Please. Okay, great. The existing front vestibule, which is shown here in the lower left, is not original to the house. It's awkwardly small and badly in need of repair. Sean and Carrie would like to reconstruct a small, also weather-protected front vestibule to keep their visitors and packages dry and secure during inclement weather. We are requesting what we think is the minimum size necessary to perform these functions, although it's slightly larger than what was there before. Let's see. I just need to move that. Okay. We believe our design satisfies the conditions for approval of a special permit listed in section 9.05 of the bylaw. The location proposed and for the front vestibule is appropriate and typical of the Pill Hill Historic District. The existing vestibule and stair are in poor condition. We believe that the neighborhood would actually be improved by the replacement of the vestibule following the Preservation Commission guidance. In this drawing, the vestibule is shown in the lower right. The front vestibule design will not present a hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. New building code compliant handrails and guards on both sides of the stair will increase the safety of visitors to the property. Code compliant steps and lighting will also be provided to serve the proposed use. And the vestibule as proposed will not have an adverse effect on the supply of housing available for low and moderate income people. I can show the side view there. The vestibule is on the lower left. And I welcome any questions you have on the proposal and thank you for your consideration. Thank you, Mr. Dill. This is a very straightforward, so I think we can go right into conversation among the board members. Blair, you have your hand up first.
Yeah, the only question that I would have about this is why you wouldn't have a little bit of a little landing area, so when you walk up the steps that you can basically open the door and go in. I assume that this is a locked door, not just a door like you have on a porch.
We do have a land. We've got the existing stone. We've got 5 risers, and then there's a landing that's 3'9" deep.
It's not shown here that way. It looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4 steps up to the door.
Yeah, I
I
guess
think
it's
you're
sorry, 4.
looking at the mudroom at the back.
Oh,
I think Blair was looking at the back.
oh yeah, I see.
That's what was
Right,
shown-
right.
That was what was shown. I see. Okay.
Okay,
This
yeah.
is much better. I like this. Fine.
Okay, yeah. So yeah,
Point
there's
taken. I'm good.
Any other members of the board? Steve?
Yeah, I think this is fine. I just had a minor thing. I don't see an elevation of the left-hand side of the vestibule. I assume it's identical to the right-hand side, but it seems like that ought to be illustrated. I mean, the
yeah,
opposite side of the vestibule doesn't appear on any of the drawings that I saw.
I guess you're correct. It really is the mirror image of this view. We can certainly add that in for our construction drawings, but it would look the same.
Right. I suggest that you do that.
Okay.
Okay. Mark, Andrea,
What
Tommy?
is the front yard setback? Are we good with that?
Can you show the site plan, please?
Yep.
Yeah,
The front yard
I
setback
think they meet the front yard setback.
Yeah.
is, I guess the requirement is 20 feet. Right now, the closest point of this is 15.6 feet. The existing is 17.5.
That's one of the cited relief.
So does it, yeah, so he needs relief for this front yard setback.
Yep.
Yes.
Essentially 2 feet more space than currently exists. And I think to Blair's point, that does make for a safer landing at the top of the stair. All
Yeah,
right.
I mean, that is in the denial letter, but it's not in the planning board report summary.
Okay, we
Front yard setback.
will add that before it goes to the Board of Appeals.
Is it not listed there, front yard setback 20 feet, existing 17.5 in the graph on the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
there.
Yes.
I was looking at a version and I didn't see that.
No, I just mean that he requires front yard relief, special permit. That's all.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry, it is there. I don't know why I didn't see it the first time. Sorry.
show the side elevation again, please.
Yes. Sorry.
So to Blair's point about there not being a landing on the mudroom, is that because you're trying not to block the window in the basement?
I think that's an existing stair
Ah,
that we're
okay.
just proposing to rebuild.
I see. Okay.
I guess, yeah, I think in our original proposal, we were just proposing to rebuild that at the same exact location, and not change it. We didn't know if that would be subject to approval also, and it sounds like it wouldn't be.
I have a question on the railings, because the proposed the bottom steps land on a raised terrace. And I was just wondering if the railing needs to extend as a guardrail, or is it lower than 30 inches?
It is,
I mean, that's a building code issue, but it affects sort of the,
yep, I just trying to maneuver to see if I can get a view of that.
I mean, it's nicer without the railing.
Yep, I guess, yeah, part of our problem was this lower railing is already there.
Yeah,
The entire front yard is a retaining wall, so unless you want to start a railing system that goes along the sidewalk, I don't know that it's a planting bed. It's not part of the walkway. I'm looking at a view from street view from the summer when the plants are
Yeah, the
in
flowering.
bloom.
Yeah.
And it's a good visual indicator that that's not where you should be walking.
It's a good question. I'm not sure we're at 30 inches here. This view is this 3D photo model is a little bit misleading sometimes with heights. We could certainly extend that guardrail if we felt like, if the building inspector felt like it was required, or we just felt like it would be safer. I guess I'm not sure if that's what we're requesting.
The second run of stairs that go down to the sidewalk staying where they are?
Yes,
Okay.
they were rebuilt relatively recently.
Yep. I was just trying to understand if pushing it out was then affecting that bottom one. That's all. Okay.
So it's not a condition of our approval, but if Dan Bennett, the building commissioner, asks if you'd add a railing, he is within his rights to do so from the building code perspective. I don't think he will, but it looks like you're not supposed to walk that close to the edge. Tommy, did you have anything before I go to public comment?
I do not, no. Other than to say I do like the design of the new vestibule. I think it actually fits the house better than the current vestibule that is not original.
Yeah, I like the hip roof rather than the pitched roof. All right, if you're all comfortable, I'm going to move to public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on behalf of this project? If so, use the react button at the bottom of the screen and raise your hand. Seeing none, I will make a motion to approve. Is this the right one? Yes. All right. So the planning board recommends approval of the site plan prepared by Scott C. Lynch, professional land surveyor, dated August 11th, 2025, and architectural plans prepared by Frank Young Dill, registered architect, dated November 20th, 2025, with the following conditions. And there are two. Number one, prior to issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall electronically submit final floor plans and elevations, stamped and signed by a registered architect, and a final site plan stamped and signed by a registered engineer or land surveyor to the Preservation Commission staff and the Director for Regulatory Planning or designee for review and approval. In condition two, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall electronically submit to the building commissioner for review and approval, A, the floor plans, site plans, and elevations displaying the approval stamp of the Director for Regulatory Planning, and B, evidence that the Board of Appeals decision has been obtained from the town clerk's office by the applicant or their representative and recorded at the Registry of Deeds. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Andrea. We'll do a roll call vote. Andrea?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Blair?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Tommy?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Thank
too.
you, you as well.
All right, our next case, 66 Toxteth.
Yep. So 66 Toxteth is proposing to construct a 3-story attached dwelling unit in the rear. This will be connected to the currently existing dwelling unit via a shared deck and breezeway. This proposal is going to require the demolition of a detached garage in the rear, which was found non-significant on April 4th, 2024 by the Preservation Commission. This is moving it from a single family to a multi-family, which is under section 4.07 requires a special permit. And they're seeking relief for the side yard setbacks for the off-street parking that is going to be included. They're seeking that relief under section 5.05 conversions. And this is a Bob Allen case, so I'm going to pass it off to him.
Thanks, Cam. Mr. Chair, members of the board, for the record, Robert Allen, 300 Washington Street in Brookline Village. Here with him tonight is Sam and Ann Engel, who are the homeowners. Cam, and also we have Joy Cumming, who is the architect. If you could just promote them. The Engels have owned in Brookline for 25 years. They lived in this house for the last couple of years. Before that, they were on Bowker for a little over 20 years. Active members in the community and looking to kind of take advantage of, right now, they have a single family and a 2-family district. The project has gone through several iterations before landing on the current concept. The applicant has done a lot of outreach, particularly to the immediate abutters, including site walks before landing on this concept. The second dwelling now complies with all setback requirements. It's smaller footprint and includes more open space than what was originally proposed. What was originally proposed actually mimics what's directly behind them, where the abutter behind does have a similar type, but it's right closer to the property line, if not on the property line. But they had some concerns about another one on the property line, so we complied with all setbacks. We're putting together a significant landscape design plan that includes hiring an arborist for tree protection. They'll fully comply with the town's tree protection bylaw, and it looks like they'll only have to remove 2 out of the 11 mature trees that are on the property. The proposal is to add a second dwelling unit, as Cam said, in the rear of the property, connected by a breezeway. The new structure replaces the not significant garage, and the use changes a single family into a two-family in a two-family district. They're also proposing to close up the existing narrow curb cut on one side and move it to the other side and widen the driveway a little bit. That allows for parking for vehicles. It will also push them away from the front yard setback a little bit more than the existing driveway. They also feel like the existing driveway is very narrow and really restricts the view corridor when you're backing up, and the wider driveway will make it safer for pedestrians. And with that, I can, as Kim said, the relief, it's only a special permit for the adding the use 5 of the second and just for the 5-foot driveway on the side. So not a ton of relief being sought. And with that, Cam, if you could just promote Joy. Joy, if you could just introduce yourself to the board and take over the screen.
There you. Hi, everyone. My name is Joy Cumming. I'm the architect on the project. My firm is Align Architecture, and we have enjoyed this process of trying to find a building that was contextually compatible with the historic neighborhood and was also sensitive to neighbors' concerns. So we designed this building a couple of times. The second time made it possible for us to stay within all the setbacks, with the exception, as Bao had just said, of providing adequate parking to both domiciles. So we created a 2.5-story, it's a 3-story building, but the 3rd story, dwells within the gambrel roof form. And I think it's, I think it satisfies most of the requirements of the client, and I think it is something that will be harmonious with the neighborhood. And I'm certainly open to answering any questions that you might have about our approach and how we arrived at the siting of the building. I will say that the client has made every effort to historically renovate and remodel the existing dwelling and wants the same kind of treatment of the proposed. They also have spent a lot of time trying to find ways to open up the south side of the building for light, for air, and obviously for enhancing the vegetation on the site. So that's where we are today.
Are you going to pull it up on the screen, Joy?
I don't have it. I mean,
Okay.
I can. I thought
Nicole,
that was all. I
Nicole,
thought that was going to be, there it is. Thanks so
There-
much. Yeah. So this is the, you see just a pencil sketch of some of our initial concept of the little building that would sit behind the main dwelling. The 30-foot setback has been respected. We were able to save 9 of the 11 mature trees on the property, which was very, very important to the owners. And as you can see, as far as the setbacks are concerned, we've met them on all 4 sides of the new domicile. And the whole building will be private and connected to the main house by way of a little breezeway, each with their own private entranceways into the dwellings. The parking on the north side provided more space for the cars, as was earlier described, which provides safety for pedestrians passing by, but also ease of access for the both domiciles. It also means that the south side can really be opened up, as I said earlier, to light and air. The whole square footage of the new domicile, including a basement area, which will only be used for things such as laundry, is 2,800 square feet, 2,825 square feet.
Would you mind putting the you don't have a landscape plan yet, right? So the site plan is probably the most accurate depiction of where existing trees are, where the new and old driveway are.
I would
Hi,
say,
Matt. This is Nicole. They have a draft landscape plan from the previous iteration of the building. If you want me to pull that up, I have that too.
Oh, that'd be helpful. Yes. What's in the design packet attached to the agenda online doesn't seem to have that yet.
It's hand drawn, but here it is.
I love hand drawings.
Mhm.
And
Let me know if
the
I'm gonna zoom
need
in.
for 4 cars for 2 units is purely owner's discretion. There's not a, you're asking for 4 cars, right?
Correct.
It's kind of like, Matt, that you either have tandem, tandem works when you have a single family, tandem doesn't work quite as well with the 2 family. So if,
Yeah.
we put 4 cars in there, but in this scenario, we weren't able to keep them out of the front yard setback. In the new scenario, we are able to keep them out of the front yard setback and protect the root system for the tree that's in front of it. Whether there's 2 cars or 4 cars there, we just put in 4 cars to show that 4 cars could fit there and still preserve the tree and keep the front yard setback.
And just to ask, if you were to keep 2 cars in the existing driveway and do 2 cars in a new driveway that's half the width, could you get them out of the front yard setback on both sides and do anything differently with preserving trees?
So add a second, I actually pushed them away from that idea just because I thought 2 curb cuts wouldn't be attractive for the neighbors, and 2 narrow pulling in and out in a pedestrian area wasn't the safest way of going about it, Matt. Whether it could be done and preserved, my guess is probably yes. Would probably just keep the existing driveway and not as is, and then just do it, but would lose some landscaping and some other amenities that we were kind of looking forward to.
Yeah, just looking at the syncopation of house, driveway, house, driveway, house, driveway. For whatever reason, where you're putting the driveway, there isn't one.
Right.
But if you put one there, it would still be house, driveway, house, driveway. And if keeping what's there now works for 2 cars and adding 2 on the other side lets you maybe keep some of those more mature trees. You mentioned keeping 9 of 11. I'm assuming the ones that you would lose are where you'd be having to put the driveway pretty close to the side yard of the adjacent property. So there are 2 right there.
Yeah, we probably still need the relief, so we wouldn't be able to put the 5 yard. Maybe we could 5 foot.
I think Matt is onto something. I mean, when I actually went and looked at the site today, and before I had looked at all the drawings, and I'm thinking, why don't they put the parking on the other side where there's all this additional room? I then saw that you're trying to sort of do, 2 cars wide. And even though you're out of the front yard setback, you are still forward of the front of the house. So at a minimum, I would say, whether you stick with this situation, I would want to see the cars pulled back so they're not forward of the house itself, which I think you can do. But I think Matt's suggestion, and normally it's true, the planning board, and I see Blair's got his hand up. I know where he's usually coming from, not wanting to see second curb cuts. But I think if we look at things on a case-by-case basis, this might be a situation where a second single wide driveway might be better than abandoning what's there now and doing something that needs a 21-foot wide curb cut and 17 feet of pavement. I think you could actually maintain the 5-foot offset from the left side property line or something very close to it.
It should be roughly the same amount of impervious, right? Splitting that in half, moving 1/2, right? So total net landscaping shouldn't change because you're sort of not increasing the
remove the
impervious.
driveway on the right, remove the rear portion of it, just leave enough for 2 cars on each side. I
Yep.
know, I'm sure Blair wants to say something about this.
Blair, please join us.
Okay, there's a basement under this unit, correct?
Correct.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
So go back up. That's fine. Where you just were. Okay. So the main question I have, I assume that those 2 kind of shadow trees that you see towards the lower left-hand portion of the back are existing large trees. Is that those 2? Is that correct? That you're trying to save?
Yes, they're
This one here and then this one at the front.
at the very front, yeah.
Well, you said there were 11 existing trees. So the 2 that are on the side yard off the left, bottom back left hand corner of the house, and the one out front. I think that the challenge that I see here is that if you could magically bring this building in, I think that you could confidently say that these trees can survive this, the new loss of roots where the house is being proposed. I think the challenge is how do you dig all that soil out? How do you do all the staging and everything else and really have those 2 trees survive that are in the back corner? So my main plea here is to be really realistic about what you can actually do. And I think this segues actually to the comment about whether the 2 driveways approach might be better, because you have an existing driveway that pick up 2 cars and maybe having less cars on the left side gives a little bit more breathing room. I still have some questions about how you build this without so damaging those roots. You're going to have some type of like bark mulch, stone, fabric, all kinds of things to bridge over that for the period of time. So I really think that you should look very carefully about what you realistically can save here. I'm not opposed to this.
No, I appreciate what you're saying, Blair. We actually brought in an arborist so I think what we're saying is realistic. I mean, we tried to save all trees, but
Right,
like you were saying, the arborist had to be realistic about it, but he felt confident about, that's actually why we stopped the driveway where we stopped the driveway, because he had some concerns where the root line was. He did some
Well, I'm also concerned that, I've been on projects where we've been arborists, we do all those protection things, and then you have a contractor whose interest has nothing to do with those trees, and that you have a construction project process that goes on for a year. And the upshot of it is the trees are profoundly damaged anyway, and the contractor's just betting, oops, that guy wasn't supposed to do that. Oh, how did that water line get put right down there? So I just want you to really be careful. It'd be better to just pay what needs to be done. And I'm would love to save those trees. I just don't want you to be saying something you can't really do. The only other comment that I would say is if there was a way to tighten up the new building to the existing building, there's an awful lot of construction back there. There's patios and decks and everything like that. It looks really good. That site's going to be pretty much torn all the way up. Maybe that's what needs to happen. Again, I'm pleading for think about really what you're getting into here, because I think that it's going to be hard to save anything there between property line and rear property line on this development. That's my comment. I mean, I'm not going to oppose this.
Thank you, Blair. Andrea.
Well, I kind of agree with Steve. Well, first of all, I think if you have 2 tandem cars on either side, it's not really, it's breaking up that rhythm of having an open passage that one of the letters brought up of being able to see through and have that open strip along the house. You're filling both of them up with cars. So I would prefer to see what Steve suggested, which is to try to move the 4 cars closer or into the site and away from the front of the house.
Yeah, but then I also said maybe it'd be better to have the 2 driveways.
Yeah, but I
would
don't,
like to see the cars not forward of the front of the house, even though they're not in the front yard setback.
I guess
think
it's
you
the
should walk
right,
down that street and see how many people are parking in that area as it is.
Oh, the street is lined with cars because
No, I
of
know that.
Lawrence
Yeah.
School teachers park
Well,
there, both
I
sides.
mean, in terms of people's private driveway, people are,
that, I
I
think,
think live with the setback and limit how much you're pushing cars into the rear.
Hmm.
I want to correct my earlier statement about the syncopation of right across the street, and there's several of these two driveways side by side, but each half of the driveway looks to be owned by one building on either side of it. But you do get 4 cars in a driveway between 2 houses. So right across the street, although it's a different precedent because it's 2 different owners, it is a double wide driveway, and there are actually 2 double wide driveways directly across the street. Aesthetically double wide, again, split between properties.
Yeah, that's the one that's right in the front yard setback, pretty much, Matt, right?
Yeah, there's one with a pink house on one side
Yeah,
and
yeah.
blue on the other. And because of the bay windows, they can't go any further back in the driveway. And then there's one that looks like it does go much further back, looks like a garage at the rear of the, well, maybe that's just the building on the street behind. They have a side porches on both of those. It looks like it's clear straight lines to get back. All right, so there is framing, conceptual framing for side by side cars in a driveway. Mark.
Yeah, I guess I want to put my hat in the ring for a 2 driveway scheme. Knowing what I know about the tree permit, protection permit, you're probably going to have to use the side of the existing driveway to, for construction of the rear, because you got this, tree save area that's 1.5 times the diameter of the trees, and those 2 large trees that are on the side where you want to put the new driveway are not going to really do very well, not to mention the fact that you probably have a 35 or 40-foot tree save area on that whole side of the house if you want to keep those trees. So I think that the idea of 2 driveways would be fine with me. And I think it would save trees.
Thank you for that. I think what I'd like to do is we'll invite public comment, see what I'm hoping some neighbors are on, what neighbors think about that, given the context. There's several different precedents of this type of driveway, and then come back.
I see a lot of neighbors on that.
Yeah. Tommy, did you have anything that you wanted to add before we move to the neighbors?
I don't, Matt. No. Thanks,
Okay.
Tom.
So I think what you're hearing is the planning board is comfortable with the additional dwelling unit. As you know, Brookline's looking for the creation of these kinds of backlot houses as part of the solution. With that comes potentially a second family with a vehicle. They've got a proposal to put the vehicles all on one side of the house. There's a suggestion that perhaps the vehicles could be split on both sides of the house. I frankly don't think you need to show 4 cars to have a driveway on both sides, but you could park up to 4 cars and still be beyond the front yard setback. So that's sort of a maximum rather than a necessary quantity that would be there. But with that, I'd love for the neighbors and any members of the public wish to speak. I see Harry's already got his hand up. Please introduce yourself, where you live, your thoughts on the project as presented, and then if you so choose, your thoughts on whether or not we should ask them to split the driveway, keeping the one they have now and adding a narrow one on the other side and trying to stay within the 5-yard side yard setback. Mr. Boris.
Thank you. So I'll try and be quick. As you know, this used to be an NCD. I won't go into that long history other than to mention that one of the primary points of the NCD was a big issue for the neighborhood, and it was also well researched by the planning departments, supported by the planning department, was the notion of the streetscape and the importance of the streetscape in the neighborhood, particularly along this street. It winds up being sort of a default shared neighborhood asset, even if it is serially owned. One of the things about living in dense areas is we all sort of tacitly sign on to a social compact, and part of that is being tolerant of our neighbors, but also respectful of our neighbors. And along the streetscape, contributing to the extent we can, but certainly not detracting from it. And I see on this plan, the way the parking is at least now being presented, where it moves forward of the house, it becomes an unnecessary detractant. And if there was a hardship, that might be one thing, but this is a 10,000 square foot lot. And to think that you can't accommodate the parking properly, it's a little bit hard for me to do. And as was pointed out, the new building in the back, that placement is one of choice. So I would like to see a better take on the parking. If there's a way that by doing that, it preserves the trees, I think that's great. The trees are really meaningful, not just to the neighborhood, but I think Brookline in general. We are a dense community, and it takes out some of that sense of being dense. And you don't realize it until you lose it. But again, I don't see a true hardship here to have to accommodate the extra cars. I think that could be done. And I think if we can find out with a creative way, and it lends itself to the historical pattern, which is maintaining that common streetscape. This side of the street has large lots, the other side has small lots, which causes a different sort of problem. I will say there are two homes that have permitted sort of front parking, one kind of semi-front, and the other actually is parking in the front. The one, I don't know how that was originally established. The other's more than half a century old, and that's because you can't possibly get around the house to park, and that's why it's granted. There are going to be cases where people decide not to pull all the way into their driveway, which is true, not just here. It's true anywhere in town, I'm sure in most towns. But that's not the same as permitting it. And to me, it's sort of akin to pointing to people that run through red lights and saying, well, I saw other people do it, I should be able to do it as of right. I don't think so. I think it's reasonable to try and push these cars back a bit and preserve that shared viewscape that's historically been here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boers. Just curious on the single driveway on the side proposed new, if that's narrower, how much further could you get the cars back? I guess I don't know how big those tree canopies are for the two trees on your site plan, but could you get the cars back beyond the front facade of the house?
That line where you see now, or we don't see right now, but that line, Nicole, if you want to pull that back up, on that double wide driveway scenario, that line is pretty firm, I would say. Because it does
on the full width of it, or just on the width that's closest to the property line? Because that's the one that sort of goes straight into the root ball of a tree.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I didn't look, I always kept the line straight. I never sort of considered,
an angle at the end.
Stepping it or anything.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Rebecca Stone, I see your hand up. Can't remember if you can make her a presenter.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thank you. I did submit a letter with some photographs on it as public comment that you should have, that I saw posted online in the agenda packet, so you all have access to it. And relative to what some people have been asking about the trees, I think one of the photographs that I provided, which was taken just a couple of days ago, shows the actual trees along the north side of the house that will be affected by this. So you can see the trees that you're talking about, not just see them as little daisy bursts on the drawings. I think it's important for you to be able to actually imagine what the site is. The other thing, just to point out relative to your conversation, is that the back of the house is there's a significant hill that goes up to Perry Street on the back of the house. And I don't know, you haven't asked any questions and I don't know the answer to this. But I think one of the questions relative to the trees especially is whether or not any excavation of that wall in order to do the construction that's proposed will be necessary, and whether or not that excavation itself might be damaging to some of the trees, as it was on the neighboring property to the south. The project that extended that property twice the size of the original house, and in the process of excavating for that extension, killed a 100-year-old beech tree, which was, and also collapsed the neighbor's back patio. So I just think some of the questions that could be asked about the impact of construction, I thought you were asking some good ones earlier. But in terms of the preservation of the trees, which is not my main comment, I think it's worth pressing a little bit harder on the nature of both the plans and the construction to put them in place relative to the damage. The letter that I wrote you is about the parking specifically. I think it's a misnomer to say that we're talking about a new driveway. We are talking about a parking pad. The driveway in place now was designed to take, as driveways are, to take you all the way to the back of the property, where there is a garage that I understand is going to come down, and there's no reason why it shouldn't. But as I said in my letter, if you take down that garage and you have an existing driveway, you have room to continue to park the cars that go with this building, plus one. There is no reason to offer two parking spaces. We are in an era where the number of parking spaces for dwelling units is going down. This is a public transit rich neighborhood that's talked about all the time when we talk about parking regulations. So again, this is a choice that's being made to say that there should be two car parking spaces associated with this new dwelling. That's a choice. It's not a requirement. And the feeling is in the neighborhood, people talked about the double driveway across the street is my driveway and our neighbor's driveway to our south. We don't have the opportunity across the street. The lots are much smaller. They're 4,000 and 5,000 square foot lots. The driveways are in fact parking pads. They don't lead to a back because there is no room in the back of our houses for the garages. On the 10,000 square foot lots, they were built with garages. They were used as garages. And again, the capacity is there. I fully understand why our neighbors on that side of the street want to landscape and use that back for lovely patios and things like that. But again, that's a choice. And their choice and preference for that imposes, as Harry was saying, and I certainly support what he was saying, imposes on the rest of the neighborhood a norm that is frowned on across Brookline, which is putting a parking pad that requires a new curb cut, which is not pedestrian friendly at all, and this street has a lot of them. And it also the curb cut that's being proposed is 21 feet wide, which is an extraordinarily wide curb cut and change to a parking pad that, even though it leads the cars or could lead the cars to the back of the house, or at least back of the front of the house, is still a parking pad. And as Harry said, or one of you may have said, the norm is to park where it's convenient to get in and out of your car, which is very often not pulling it adjacent to the house where it's much harder to open the door. So the practical implications of the design are that it will be a pad, not a driveway to a place in the back. And it's not actually necessary. It is a preference. Again, I fully understand the preference, but it does impose on the neighborhood, as Harry was saying, something that is both against the norms in Brookline in terms of front of house parking, and certainly the norms on that side of the street where it simply doesn't exist. All of the front of house parking that Harry described and that you can see if you come onto Toxteth Street is on our side of the street, where back of the house parking is much more difficult.
Thank you for that. For the record, can you remind us or tell us your address?
Oh, sorry, I'm at 71 Toxted,
Thank you very
directly
much.
across the street from 66,
And
which,
what do
by
you-
the way, on your map is not correctly identified, which I wrote to Polly about earlier.
Do you have thoughts on two narrow driveways, the existing remaining, and another one with a curb cut of 10 feet?
I mean, certainly, a smaller curb cut would be better, less sidewalk that's angled, and ices over, would be better. I still, you know, and if it's a single drive for one or two cars, you know, the chances that they could be taken farther back is certainly easier, because it'll be easier to get in and out of those cars if they aren't directly next to another car. Certainly sharing a driveway with our neighbors, we know very well how difficult it is sometimes to open one of the doors.
Yep. But
So
I would also address the parking pad. You know, there wouldn't be that much asphalt, the width of a single drive, or the tire.
right. It
pad
would be
length
less
of it.
asphalt. My point
Yeah.
about the parking pad is that the asphalt goes all the way to the street, whether or not you call it a driveway or a pad. It's asphalt all the way from wherever it ends to the street. So it does pave over the front in some form in a place where it is not currently paved. It is currently green space, and there are bushes that would be affected as well. Which you can see again. I provided a photograph on the letter that we sent, that's in your agenda packet. So yes, I mean, is it better than a 21-foot curb cut and effectively and 4 cars parked next to each other? Yes, absolutely. Does it answer all of the things that Harry and I have both raised? No.
Yeah. Understood.
I'm wondering whether, just kind of building on what Steve had said earlier and the 2 public comments we've received so far, given the fact there was a garage back there and there was a driveway that went all along there, and you have an opportunity to preserve the right side of the properties, trees and so forth. It'd be nice to see whether or not they could, in fact, get parking to the rear of this site. I know that it's going to get into all their elaborate terraces and decks and so forth, but it'd be interesting for the planning board to see what an alternative like that would be, because it may not have been looked at. Thank you.
You're suggesting being able to park, and I'll say this, it's not necessarily, I mean, under the deck. If the deck is the second floor level, you'd be able to park in the
I was
area
just
below the
thinking
deck.
about, you know, it's I think they make a fair comment about this is all about choice. Is it all about you know, looking to have a second curb cut is a consequential change in the landscape and the public domain of the public sense of neighborhood. So that, I think that's a pretty significant ask. And I want to be convinced that alternatively, trying to get the additional car parking that they would need to between the new building. Now, this would be oriented facing this, you know, from the street looking into the property, that it'd be to the left of the proposed building, whether there'd be room to create a kind of a parking court there that could also double up as an outdoor terrace space when the cars could be pulled out onto the street. But it is, you know, it's an ample lot, and I'd like to see whether they could make that work rather than basically tearing up the amount of streetscape they're going to be tearing up to put the other driveway in, and likely lose those trees that are on the right sideline as one faces the front of the house.
Well, let's ask just to make sure. Joy, did your team look at doing a sort of 3-point turn behind the original house in the area that's currently shown as deck and grass as a way to get multiple cars, not tandem parking in, but using
No.
that part of the property?
No, that was not something that was ever really discussed, because that's primarily the primary residence is living space and exterior living space. So they were trying to get cars away from that part of the site. So
I think they're also putting the cars then in the public space more. So I think that may be a worthy exercise to.
Well, I think
that would be very convincing to me
Yeah.
if it could be shown that it wasn't feasible to get the parking
It's very,
behind the house.
by the way, they got rid of one curb cut. We keep talking about 2 curb cuts, and that is one thing to be discussed, but this proposal, whether that 21 feet is reduced to something that you would find more pleasing, they did get rid of the south side curb cut, so there's only currently.
No, I understand
Okay.
that. I'm thinking
All
of
right.
the outside curb cut, which is the existing one.
Yeah,
Already has paving going to the back. It would be probably the best way of going in and building things because you wouldn't be damaging root zones of
well,
trees.
certainly that's how construction could occur, most certainly.
Right.
But I'm talking about long-term.
I
habitation.
appreciate
Yeah.
that, and I appreciate why the owner wants to have all the rear yard for themselves and the new building. But I think that you need to convince me at least that there's not an alternative.
Sure. Well,
I'm looking at the site plan, there's, you know, significant grade change on that side based on the contour. So if you were to put the driveway and parking back there like a parking court, you'd have a big retaining wall. And it would affect the neighbors as well.
Which is what's there now. There's a retaining wall leading up to the garage is being removed.
mhm.
Okay.
I'm looking at it without drawing it. I don't think it's feasible. I think we could demonstrate to neighbors and others that it's not feasible with a fairly simple turning radius study.
Mhm.
And, you know, because if you look at what that would take, I don't know that it's going to be as nice looking having that configuration back there.
I had another angle on this that might be worth talking about since we're concerned about preservation of the large trees. I know we've been talking about the trees at the back of the proposed new parking area. I'm also concerned about the 34-inch maple that's only a few feet away from the proposed new parking area in the front of the house. Whether or not we agree or push the proponents into a 2 driveway situation or allow them to do what they're currently proposing, and we've done this in numerous other cases, I would suggest that we consider requiring the use of permeable pavement for these driveway areas
Which
to reduce any.
actually,
We're
that
not
is-
doing that anyway. Yeah.
Oh, you are doing it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't see any reference to that. Okay, well, I mean, I think that would help,
Yeah. And
both aesthetically and environmentally.
Mhm.
Tommy, I'll let you go, then we'll go back to public comment because we do have another.
Yeah, I guess my question here is, so we're talking a fair bit. I've heard a lot about how the neighborhood looks and the way people park and the one side of the street versus the other. But it appears to me that the neighboring property at 62 Toxteth has essentially the kind of parking situation already that is being proposed as the new parking situation for 66. And I'm curious to hear from, you know, these members of the public that are advocating against such a parking scenario on that side of the street, the justification for why it's okay at 62 but not at 66. And I'm no fan of large amounts of parking and lots of cars or anything, but you know, if we're talking about the neighborhood, when you've got a house right next door that is kind of bang on what's being discussed for 66, I'd just like to hear some more about why we should differentiate the 2 properties.
That's another one that it's hard to tell from looking at the photographs, but that looks like it got a fairly significant addition or expansion on the rear as well.
Yeah.
Driveway was modified at the same time that was approved.
Yeah,
When
so
that project happened, it caused quite a furor in this neighborhood because it was, you know, it was the first time anyone had built back to their allowed 30-foot rear yard setback, and it invaded what I think people in that neighborhood considered as Harry Boers mentioned earlier, every separately owned but kind of shared sense of green open space in the back, and that was really kind of an affront to the neighborhood. I mean, I guess we must have approved it because they had a right to do it. And that's one thing when I looked at this site, I mean, this new building extends just as far back as the previous building at 62. But as far as I'm concerned, you know, that horse is out of the barn. So we can't say no to this in that respect, but that previous project caused a lot of dismay on Toxteth Street.
And
That's
actually,
some good context, Steve. Thanks for that. Because
a question for Cameron and Polly. Just I want to understand because there was a question about whether or not there can be discussion of the impact of construction on the trees in a typical construction management plan that's submitted. Is tree preservation tactics now part of the construction management plan?
It can be, say, include tree protection plan.
Okay.
It's part of the tree bylaw, Matt.
Yeah.
That's why I was curious if because of the bylaw now that the construction management plan has to include
Every
tree
tree within
protection.
30 feet
Yep.
of the site.
Okay.
It's not construction management, it's the approval of the tree protection bylaw.
That's
approval.
correct. That's correct.
I mean, to make it part of an approval by our group is like double jeopardy.
Yeah.
Right. So they'll make sure
It's not
that
necessary.
someone is telling the general contractors, landscaping, and site team what they have to do to be able to drive over the roots, what they have to do to restore any soil that they kick up. So as
That's
long as
part of
that's
the
covered,
approval
that's not our
process.
purview. That's not what we do, but that's
That's part
outside
of the
this.
granting the approval and the permit for the tree protection bylaw. That's part of it.
Yeah, that's inherently there. Okay, just want to make sure we're not missing an opportunity to talk about that if it's necessary. All right, we've got and both Harry and Becca put their hands back up. We'll call back on you, but let's do Carl and then Frank, and then come back to the other two. Carl Kelsey. And please, when you introduce yourself, tell us where you live so we have an address for record.
Happy to. Carl Kelsey. I live at 80 Toxteth, which is not, I'm not a direct abutter, but I'm a house away. And I used to live across the street at 57, so I've experienced both sides of the street. All I'm trying to add here is that one of the things one of you guys mentioned earlier was the parking that is associated with the Lawrence School. The Lawrence School makes our street a very, there's a lot of cars here. And, a butter that you referred to with the large driveway next door, personally, I think is an abomination. I mean, when you guys approved that and they put in the addition, it's really what stimulated a lot of the neighbors to get together to go to the NCD model. And so I'm here only to reinforce what Harry and Becky have said, because I think they're both correct, but I don't want to add, we don't need another parking lot on the street. We have enough parking, and this is a 10,000 square foot lot. Let's all get together and use a little creativity, because I think there's a lot of creativity here. There's a lot of people who can think about a lot of stuff, and it's all choice, as Rebecca said. There is a retaining wall. You can move the house over a little bit. You can pull it closer to the back. There's a way to make cars not have to park on the street. I mean, we don't need another lot on the street. That's all I wanted to say, because that's my opportunity to say it.
Thank you, Carl. Appreciate that. Frank Steinfeld.
Thank you. Frank Steinfeld. I live at 160 Aspinwall. And I want to just straight out advocate for trees and for open space through the corridor on the rear of the house. As mentioned earlier, the development next door was incredibly challenging and one of the more disruptive and unpleasant experiences I've had living here for 25 years. And the developer, when regrading the back, badly damaged, and in addition to that beautiful old beach, a red oak, which crosses 3 property lines, and leaving exposed roots, causing the project to get shut down. And it cost us thousands of dollars to rescue that, uncompensated dollars to rescue that tree, and it's doing pretty much fine. Looking at that view corridor, though, down behind the houses on Toxteth, which we look out on, I'm really hoping that the mature trees that are there that form a canopy will not be disappeared, and that the work of doing a huge project can really wreak havoc on landscape. And the work we did to try to moderate that, including going to the building department and really advocating in all sorts of ways, was almost completely fruitless. And so in this case, with a bit more understanding on all parties, I'm hoping that, and from our perspective, that not just the streetscape, but the area behind these houses, which has led to a fairly open and shared asset to the community, won't be horribly damaged, sort of before it's too late. So thank you for kind of keeping that in consideration. I don't have a sense of the risk to those trees in the rear. I know the north side has got some issues, but I really think they are critical to our neighborhood and hope that they will survive. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Joy, would you mind, I'm not sure who had the screen up, I think it was Nicole, pointing out which 2 trees of the 11 trees are coming down, just to be clear for everyone? You're going to preserve 11 mature trees, and you're going to have to remove and then replace, by the bylaw, 2 mature trees. I just want to make sure we all know which ones they
9
are.
and 2 for a total of 11, Matt.
Right. 9 will stay, 2 will be removed,
Yeah.
replaced. Yeah.
I thought you said 11 would stay.
No, sorry.
Joy, you have to help out with which tree?
There's one tree that's, this site only shows, where's the addition?
Slide it forward a little bit. Oh.
Yeah, I can't see.
Is this the plan you want to show or?
No, this is the existing house. I can't really see.
Okay, yeah.
Slide it up, yeah.
So here's the existing garage, as you can see, and this is all retained. I mean, this is all a huge retained form in the hillside. And then there's these 2 big trees here, and we're going to lose 1 oak there at the rear of the property. And then there's another one along the north side. Is Laura here? I just wondered if somebody else could speak to that, because I'm only aware of 1 that we're losing associated with the construction of the second domicile.
It seems like there's
The
only
other
something
one is
shown
towards
on
the.
plan.
I am here.
Oh, hi, Laura.
Hi, Joy. Yes, really the 2 that are unlikely to survive there would be the maple that's right, the oak and the maple that's just a few feet away from it on that north side.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea we have Barrett Tree East and Mark Hansen, the arborist from Barrett Tree East, doing the tree preservation study on this. And I'm working on the garden design, the landscape design. That's my involvement with this. There's some thought that with proper root pruning before the construction begins, and if construction access is limited to the south side of the house, so that there are no trucks parking over here, jumping the curb or whatever, or no construction materials moving down that north corridor, that is really important to protect all of those trees along that north side of the house. If you look at the south side where the existing driveway is, we don't have those issues. But anyway, yeah, so those are the 2 trees under consideration. I just want to say that the thinking also was that in terms of enjoying the street and the streetscape, that having a planted, interesting garden area that is adjacent to the sidewalk and adding a flowering dogwood and some other things on the south side where we can take advantage of the light would make it more enjoyable for the neighborhood. If you look now at the existing north side, it's just kind of a dank, muddy canyon of darkness. And that's really not going to get any better looking.
So are you saying, though, that the 2 large trees in the back are destined to go down because they're not on the front?
No, because they were just thinking that the root zone would extend too close to the construction area for the new building.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that were flagged.
Nicole, drawing 2 of 2 from GPR Engineering shows the new addition with the old trees there. If you zoom into the bottom left corner of the addition, you can see the proximity of those 2 trees.
Thank you.
Right, and those are the ones that contribute to a canopy for the whole back section of Toxteth Street.
Mhm.
Okay,
The question is, the arborist hasn't had a chance to look at, now that everything's respecting the setbacks, with protection and preventative, they have good luck by root pruning in advance so that any construction digging doesn't just rip roots out of the ground and create jagged, longer roots, broken roots. So Mark needs to take a look at that to see if that's enough, in his opinion, to help those 2 trees survive. He hasn't had a chance to do that yet, but the way it was before the setback decision was made was that we didn't think you could get, it was just not practical to save those 2, that maple and that oak.
Joy, a question for you.
Mhm.
Is there something that would prevent you from moving the new Unit 2 plan right on the plan that's on the screen far enough away to be able to preserve those trees?
I mean, an effort was made to preserve at least one of those 2 trees in our second iteration. As you can see, they're no longer in the footprint of the building. And I mean, certainly can they begin to explore the possibility of moving it, but there's so much associated with connecting these 2 buildings and making this whole thing work. I'd be reluctant to say, oh, definitely we could. We can certainly explore it. And I think we have to be very, very careful. And the whole idea of this whole project was to be respectful of the existing topography, to try and retain the hill as much as possible prior to construction, so that any trees could be saved if at all possible. But there was the possibility that the large oak would suffer and not survive. But that's where we are at this time. And
Yeah, I'm trying to kind of come up with if we want to preserve those 2 trees and we moved Unit 2 plan right, then we can't have all the parking on the other side. I'm trying to get to a consensus point. It's more important to preserve those trees, shift it, and do 2 driveways, narrow driveways, and preserve basically all the trees. Or do we really want to get is the parking, what's more important? The neighbors, I'm not asking you to choose, I'm asking you to choose. What's more important, the mature trees in the back of the property or another narrow driveway from Toxteth? That's maybe kind of where my head is at in terms of balancing some choices we have to make. I'm going to choose Ann Turner next because she hasn't spoken yet, and then we'll go back to Harry and then to Rebecca.
Sorry, trying to get my technology going. I have 2 quick thoughts. I'm at 97 Toxteth and married to Harry Boers, who didn't identify 97 Toxteth. 2 quick thoughts, both riffing off what my neighbors have said. Frank mentioned that the tree was basically doing well, but that he'd spent a couple $1,000s doing that. What he didn't say is the neighbor who is in the back of, I think it's 62 Toxteth, also spent several $1,000s. And in one instance, it was because a huge branch came down and trashed their back patio and all the furniture there. So the tree was definitely damaged, and it may still continue to lose branches. It's a very significant tree. So excavating is not something to be taken lightly. The second point I wanted to raise as a possible creative thought is for the owners to move their deck to the other side of the property to allow for parking in the existing driveway space.
I don't know.
We looked at that. Joy, let's just continue on with the.
Yeah, we did look at it, at all these options a number of times, but they're just.
People keep talking about these are choices. These aren't choices.
Yeah.
We have something believe it or not, there's a zoning bylaw in the town that kind of dictates what we can do.
Yes.
And believe it or not, these trees are on this person's property, and she has a right to take them down if she wants to take them down. And they don't belong to the entire neighborhood. We have a tree bylaw and we have to pay a penalty or replace them. But at some point, there's got to be progress, right? And progress here is we need housing. Do we need housing? Yes. So we're proposing some housing here, and it may cost 2 trees. And as a result, they'll have to pay a penalty or replace it per the bylaw. And I get that, and we'll comply with that. Me, I'll probably take the blame for this driveway scenario, because it's been my experience that the planning board didn't like to see it on both sides. The side where we're proposing it is a mud pit right now, and the other side is where they get a lot of sun. So I figured landscaped area there would be beautiful. Put pavement on the side that's a mud pit right now and get cars. But if we wanted 2 driveways, I'll do it by right. I don't need permission, and I don't need to go into the backyard. All I have to do is 15 feet. I know this board likes to go beyond, but we got to go by what's on the code, and that's all I can go by. So all we have to do is pull the car 15 feet, and that's all we need.
That's fair. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Harry, going to go back around to you and then to Rebecca.
Just quickly, because somebody brought up the question of the neighboring building 62, which is actually 6264. I won't characterize it other than to say it's large. I think about 8,400 square feet. It's also not in the context of the pattern of the neighborhood, but that was a big project that was put in. They have a garage on the other side, which I suspect if they could, may have gone back farther. But if you take a look, there's sort of a notch in their property line, so that restricts it. Having said that, it still accommodates the parking behind the front plane of the house. So it may not be lovely, but it does accommodate the parking. And one quick question. I know everybody's talking about trees. Everybody's looking at this a lot about the trees. The arborist in examining the trees, has any thought been given to if there's going to be an issue with the trees in the neighbor's yard, if there's anything on the lot line that might be affected by the construction? I honestly don't know, but given what happened in a different project, it may be worth taking a look at while the arborist is there, so that
Yep,
people can,
we appreciate that,
prepare.
Harry. That new bylaw does go 30 feet, no matter what, no matter where, go into neighbor's property or whatever. So those have to be addressed.
Yep. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Harry. Rebecca had her hand up, but it went back down. So I think we're back to the board members. Blair, I think your hand went up first.
You're muted, Blair.
I was going to say, let Mark go first. He hasn't spoken yet on this one.
Okay. Mark.
Yeah, I guess that the discussion about the trees bothers me, because there's a lot of misconception about it, and there's not a lot of education about it, and people don't really understand it. And when they just talk about taking down a tree, there are, unintended consequences when you leave large trees in place. The tree protection bylaw allows for you to mitigate the trees that you take down either by replanting or by paying for the trees. An example would be that the 36-inch oak that they're taking down right now requires a 54-foot radius for its tree save area. So there's no way that you can take this addition and move it over to the other side of the property line and eliminate the problem of the tree save area. And I found over time, over the last year, I did 6 tree protection plans for approval. And I found that the arborists are turning out to be just like the civil engineers. I always said that the civil engineers they could do something the right way, they could do something the wrong way, and they could do something the engineered way. So this is the same situation with arborists, okay? They can tell you that they can save a tree, And then a couple of years later, it'll happen just like one person described, the branch will fall off. And the question is, why did that branch fall off? And that's because, basically half the root zone, disappeared when you built next to it. So the issue is that if you took down that tree, the tree protection bylaw would indicate, that you have, or let's say both trees, is 52 caliper inches, you would be required to replace 15 trees on this site or pay $500 a caliper inch for those 52 caliper inches, which is quite a big amount of money. So it's a lot cheaper to replant the trees. So therefore, if we had a landscape plan, which was more than, a garden plan, we would probably see a lot of trees that would be replaced in that backyard with regard to the idea that, 52 caliper inches equals about 15 small trees at 3.5 to 4 inches caliper. So I think that, we're just getting way ahead of ourselves with regard to this tree business, because if you're concerned about, the backyard area and continuing to be, treed and to provide some sort of respite, I think that, you might have to wait a little bit, but you're going to get 15 trees mostly in place of that big tree. So rather than leave it and have it come down on somebody's back porch, which probably what happens a lot, we need to look simply, I think, at the location of the parking and the organization of, the front yard, so that we can park not in the front yard, but on past the house. And I think the tree issue will take care of itself with a good landscape plan and a combination of the garden that's going to happen in the back, which I'm sure would include, flowering trees and shrubs and things, as well as canopy. And I think that we just need to stop using it as a reason for, design on a small 10,000 square foot lot like this, because it's much better to replant and to have it be more in keeping with what you want to see. And you might have to wait for it to grow, but I think you get a better job. That's my opinion on this. And so, I don't see that this tree business is a real problem at all. It'll take care of itself. And if the neighbors continue to keep tabs on it and take a look at what's going to happen with the landscape plan, I think they'll be satisfied, that they're going to get a good landscape as part of the permit approval for the tree protection. So I'm not concerned about that. I would like to see the parking, on either side. I would like to see the idea that the pads are back at the side of the property. So, you pull in, you park your car. And if you wind up with having two cars because one of them's in the driveway, then you either extend it or you don't park there. But the issue here with parking is to get it out of the front yard. I've always not liked to have parking in the front yard. That means it's got to be back 15 feet from the setback, not necessarily completely behind the house. The other thing I want to say is that most of these trees, for example, in the front yard, you got a 34-inch maple on one side and a 24-inch maple on the other side. And it looks to me like you have, I don't know, 25 feet between those two trees. The issue here is that those roots grow into each other, and you're really not going to have any root zone for either tree in the area where you're going to have the new curb cut, because the roots are at odds with each other. So if you put in a permeable pavement in that area for the driveway, like Steve suggested, and a pad back behind the setback, I think that those two trees can basically exist the way they are and probably will work very, very well. So, I mean, I think that in my mind, I think we got a solution here that we just need to let it happen.
Thank you, Mark. And I appreciate the dimensionality on the radius from the trees in the back, because to your point, even if you remove the new unit 2 all the way as far as possible to the right, you're still not going to be out of that zone.
Right. So yeah, I just did the calculation, taking those 2 trees down would cost an additional $26,000 if you didn't plant anything back. So I'm sure that, when you think about it, even if they planted 10 trees back at $600 a tree, it's only $6,000. It's a hell of a lot less than 26,000. So what the bylaw allows is it pushes you to replant, to mitigate with replanting.
All right, I'm going to go to Tommy, and then Steve, then Blair.
Yeah, I guess I've been hearing a lot of talk about parking in front of the house and parking, in the front yard. But someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the only way the parking as proposed is non-conforming is actually the side yard, right?
Yeah.
All the parking we have is beyond the 15-foot setback. So, I think following up with Mark about the tree bylaw, we have some of these rules in place, and I've heard a lot of talk about why this shouldn't be approved despite conforming to very specific rules we already have in place. I haven't heard anyone talk about the side yard setback of the parking, only the front yard setback of the parking, and yet the parking conforms to the front yard setback. We have a tree bylaw that dictates how people can dispose of trees on their own property, and if they want to pay $26,000 to do so, they are more than welcome to do so. But I'm unclear on how either of those kind of 2 main points that it seems to me are being discussed rise to the level of not approving this when, from my understanding, they're both within the rights of the property owner. So that's kind of where I am on those 2 points. And I'm certainly happy to work towards finding a compromise for the neighbors, the property owner, and everything. But it just feels like we're in the weeds on a couple of things here. That's all.
Yep. No, obviously the primary thing they're looking for special permit is to put the new unit behind. Behind. That's why if we split the driveway, then they don't need the other relief.
Right.
As Bob said, they could do that as of right. And then there's only one thing. Can we build more housing in this part of the town behind an existing building? And obviously I think we'd all like to see housing built like this.
Yeah.
Steve?
I have to unmute. Thanks. You'll be happy to know that I have a question for the architect that has nothing to do with trees or parking, although I do want to say something further about the parking. Joy, can you put up the plans for the new home?
Can somebody?
Nicole was the one who was sharing.
Having come back from the supermarket today with several bags of groceries and a 30-pound box of cat litter and dragging them up just the 4 steps to my front door, I'm wondering why you are proposing to put the living, dining, kitchen area on the 2nd floor of the building, and the bedrooms basically closer to grade, forcing your new tenants or your new homeowners to drag everything up a story and a half to get to the kitchen. I don't see any reason to do that.
That's
frankly.
the way they want to live, Steve.
I'd like to hear
Steve,
your reason.
that's the way they want to live. I mean, do we have to spend time on this?
Just that's a question. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's the way they want to live. That's the way
Okay.
they want to live.
going back to the parking, I started this by I sort of saying, yeah, I agree that the planning board does not like to see 2 driveways on a property. And I don't know if there's anything in our zoning that requires a special permit for that, but I strongly favor, in this case, it's a case-by-case issue, the 2 parking area solution, because it does not require relief for the side yard setback on the new parking. And I also I can vouch for what Mark is saying. The arborist that I work with in similar situations for years was a senior arborist at the Arnold Arboretum. He had exactly the same attitude about trees. If you have a tree that's past its prime, that's compromised by its location with respect to new construction, you're better off taking it down and putting in some new stuff that will frame the property in the way it needs to be and grow into its own, enhanced form.
Am I
And,
missing something? If you're saying to have two driveways, one driveway on the left side would have two tandem cars that would be within the setback. And then if you kept the driveway on the right side, the south side, you'd have two cars parked outside of the setback.
No,
Front
well, I mean,
yard
the existing
setback.
driveway is existing, so I don't know that they need relief to maintain that driveway. The new driveway, if they narrow it to a single width, can be kept 5 feet from the property line, I think.
I think it's only from the front yard setback. You don't want cars parking
In the front.
closer than 15
front-
feet from the
Right.
street.
And they're not needing relief for that in any case.
I don't know if it was Laura, the landscape designer, who brought up the point of having that driveway converted to garden space, which
Yes.
is more desirable facing south and instead of having cars there. So I'm an advocate for having the 4 cars parked in tandem on the left side, but pushed further into the lot. And given that it's permeable pavers, I'm understanding that that's doable and will not harm the trees. And then if there's a way maybe to reduce the curb cut to at least at the sidewalk,
Yeah.
to help mitigate that concern.
There is a big building that's 64 Toxteth. Well, maybe it doesn't extend too far front, but that kind of creates a lot of shade on that south side driveway at 66. So I don't know how sunny that is.
The grass doesn't even grow there, is what my client's telling me.
So I don't see a big distinction in terms of sun and shade on either side of this house, given what's around it.
Let's wrap up with Blair.
Yeah, so I just want to say that I'm in favor of this new the new residence going in here. I think that I'm not crazy about the site plan. It seems overly elaborate. I don't know why the building and there's a series of decks and terraces and all that seems overwrought in my mind. I would just amend Steve's Mark's comment about the tree roots. They're generally in the top of the topsoil layer. So yes, by all means, permeable pavers, but you're really going to have to kind of mound over so you're not, ripping out 12 inches of soil, which is where you have all the roots. I'm not going to vote against this. I think it's overdone in the back. But I think that the site plan needs more work myself.
The section elevation, sheet number PD 1.2 does a pretty good job of explaining. It looks like a lot on plan, but in section, it's just, 3 terraces working with the topography. It doesn't seem all that complicated in section. The plan just looks more complicated given the number of lines. All right.
What gets done? Go ahead.
So, unclear whether or not we're ready to take a vote, because it sounds like some of you would approve the 4 cars on one side and others maybe would prefer 2 cars on each side. But no one is against building the housing unit.
I'm for going, I mean, I can throw my weight against having the cars parked 4 on is it the left-hand side as it is now? And it certainly is within the setback. And Blair is right, if you're gonna put that driveway in, there are many ways to build it. You do need a landscape plan that would indicate, you could do it with, you don't need to do it even with porous paving. You don't even have to put paving down. You could put down reinforced turf. You could drive a fire truck over it. And it's right at the surface of the ground, and you don't have to dig into the root zone.
Well, Thank you, Mark. Matt, if you're gonna take a vote on the parking, I'm gonna go with 2 to each side so that you do maintain that 5-foot setback. That would be my vote. But my vote is yes for the house.
Okay. Just a straw poll, because again, we don't want to take a vote for not getting this where it needs to go. Tommy, how are you feeling about the driveway? All
Me-
4 on one side or split?
Yeah, so frankly, I'm happy to approve it as is, mostly because I don't feel comfortable restricting the rights of this property owner just because they weren't first past the post when you've got the neighbor next door with the same setup being proposed right now. That's where I'm at.
Okay. And Mark, you're feeling like you could do all 4
What do
on
you
one
mean
side?
all four?
As drawn versus asking them to split it to 2 driveways, 2 cars each
Ye-
side.
Yeah, I could go as drawn with a landscape plan, not necessarily for the trees, but for the hardscape, how they would be dealing with the hardscape on the driveway.
All right. So it sounds like we have a majority that will approve it as is. So let's move to a vote. I will make the motion. Planning board recommends approval of the site plan prepared by, I'm not gonna spell, forgive me, Lemotiv, professional engineer, dated September 9th, 2025, and architectural plans prepared by Joyce A. Cumming, registered architect, dated September 10th, 2025, with the following conditions, and there are 3. Prior to issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall electronically submit final floor plans and elevations stamped and signed by a registered architect, and a final site plan stamped and signed by a registered engineer or land surveyor to the Director for Regulatory Planning or a designee for review and approval. Condition 2, prior to the issuance of a building permit, a construction management plan shall be submitted for review and approval of the building commissioner or designee. And condition 3, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall electronically submit to the building commissioner for review and approval, A, the floor plan, site plans, and elevations displaying the approval stamp of the Assistant Director for Regulatory Planning, and B, evidence that the Board of Appeals decision has been outlined from the town, obtained from the town clerk's office by the applicant or the representative and recorded at the Registry of Deeds. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tommy. We'll roll call vote. Tommy?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Andrea?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye, but I will say I prefer 2 driveways.
Blair?
I'm gonna join Steve, that I think that should be 2 driveways. And I
I'm
think
gonna
the
join you.
commission-
I'm
and
also,
I'm gonna say yes to the housing, so I'm an aye.
yeah, and I'm an I. Also would have preferred 2 driveways, but not gonna stop progress. So,
So I've,
Thank you for all the, oh, sorry.
I think that the owner should reconsider that. You have your approval. I think that also I think the landscape plan and the site plan certainly needs a lot, as much design and thought as the building has. So I do urge you to reconsider some of those things that you're showing. Thank you.
Thank you all.
thank you for bearing with us. It was an hour-long conversation, but
Yep. Good result.
better
Thank
to
you.
have had it than not.
Absolutely. Appreciate all the neighbors coming out.
All right, our next and last case of the night is 8 Fairway Road.
Yep. So our next case is 8 Fairway Road, which is constructing a rear 2-story tall sunroom addition with a new basement area and a covered deck. The applicant is proposing to remove an existing rear deck to replace it with a 2-story high 3 Seasons room, a covered deck, and a new basement area underneath the 3 Seasons room. They are right on 8 Fairway Road, which is at the corner of Fairway Road, Reservoir Road, and straight on Boylston Street. They need special permitting for design review under 509.2 J and N, and they also need relief for the floor area ratio, which they're increasing from the previously existing 0.25, which was the max required, and their proposal is a 0.33. And they're seeking that relief under section 5.22.3 B1B, exceptions for FAR in residential units. Oh, I see.
Sharif?
Yeah, I'm gonna pass it off to him.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sharif Al-Gindi. I live on 8 Fairway Road. I will try to make this very brief because it has been a long night for you. I actually sent a letter and I saw it was published. So hopefully you got a chance to read it because it kind of summarizes what exactly is being done and why. So this addition is all in the rear, in the back of the building. So it doesn't touch the front of the building at all, and it is not seen from the front. It respects all like the setbacks, the heights, the open space, and almost everything really except the farm. The addition itself is um, like a sunroom, or the plan really is to make it like a big greenhouse with a mixed use. So it will be a living area, but it's a greenhouse with actually, I have drawings for trees that will be in there. So that's really the high ceiling, and it's all glass. So it has like very low impact around, like it fits really well within the environment. It's like very low profile. It's not like solid walls, it's mostly glass. And not one, actually, the main reason I started thinking about it because I have an empty lot next to me that was approved under 40B for a new building, kind of with the roof structure would be more than 70 feet height and 7 feet setbacks. So this building will just put a huge shadow on my property. I will not be getting, and I have shadow studies. I will not be getting any morning or afternoon sun. So this glass room will, give me some brightness, allow me to have some trees inside because the shadow will affect the trees outside, and use it as a living space at the same time. So covering for the deck will provide privacy to my living area, because once you have the tall building on the other side, almost every person on the other side can look into my living room area. So if I have the deck and it's covered, that gives me privacy also. I do need the extra space because we have 9 people living in this house, like 3 different generations. So myself and my wife, and we have 4 children. One of them will finish college, but he's working here and staying with me. And then I have my parents, both of them, and my mother-in-law. So it's kind of indirectly also helping the town, because when I have more people living in that house, it kind of decreases the need for them to go outside and, start renting apartments when we have kind of housing shortage. I've tried to be very, very brief, so hopefully I kind of relate the picture. And any questions?
So the basement space is not going to be finished, and the main 5 seasons room is double height. So you're putting this addition on and you're only gaining 1 room.
Yes, because the addition is mainly used as like an indoor garden. So it's a living space with the trees. And I'm adding storage space. There is part of it that will be used as like part within that addition is a storage. It says like new dressing room and mezzanine, that's like storage. And the rest will be like 1 room.
Is there a site plan?
Yes,
I didn't see it.
it was submitted with a permit, but there is a site plan, yeah.
I didn't see it in the packet.
It was not in the package. Maybe do you have it at your? Cameron,
With
do you
me,
have it?
Give me a second, I might be able to pull it up. Let me double check.
the site plan, the one certified by the surveyor, right?
Not in the stuff that's linked to the agenda. That does not mean you did not.
Yeah,
It
here we
just
go.
means it's not electronically connected to the agenda.
We'll pull it up in a second. visible, yeah, for it.
And so the 40B project is on the right side where
On
The left side.
On the left
Left.
side.
the left side.
Yeah, like southeast. Mostly east. I mean,
So I don't have any issues, just sort of a design concern that, you know, you have all these big glass windows, but then that large building will be looking right into those glass windows.
actually, they were designed that I would still get privacy. Like the direction, like the glass is recessed to the back. So there would be like so the
Yeah,
angle
I
from the other building will not be able to see through this glass.
Mhm.
So it's light, it would be light plus privacy.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not a complicated,
I don't have any issues with
Yeah.
this.
Yep.
it's basically a winter garden.
Yeah.
I love trees, really. I mean, there was a big discussion about trees, and I do love plants. I love greenery and trees.
Let me just review the, so the relief is for the floor area ratio, okay, and
It's a big lot.
as it's a big lot and the
Yeah.
properties around it are all big, so
Yeah,
it's not like it's dwarfing the scale of the neighborhood or anything like that, so.
Right.
Yeah, it's like across from a school and a butts of brownfield right now. So
And I should have brought a picture. Like I have a lot of like trees, like a big tree line between myself and my neighbor to the west of me. So it has really no impact on the surrounding.
Oh, I know where this is. All right. It took me a minute to like, where is this? Now I
right,
get it.
right in my neck of the woods. I
Yeah.
drive on this street just about every day.
Yeah, across street from Hay School.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there was a gas station that was demolished years. Okay, I know. All right.
Yeah, that's the site of the 40Bs, I guess.
Got it. Okay. All right. Any members of the board have comments, concerns?
I actually just wonder if Polly can tell us if she knows anything about the status of that 40B on the adjacent property. It's been a while.
I believe it's still in litigation.
Litigation, okay.
People in the neighborhood still have their yard signs up about it.
Okay. I don't drive down that street very often, so okay, thanks.
I have one question for Polly, actually. This is a through lot. It has frontage on Fairway Road and also Route 9, Boylston Street. Does that mean that it has a special setback for the back rear yard?
Both the frontage on Route 9 and the frontage on Fairway Road are both front property lines.
Right.
And we
right.
need to meet the front yard setback.
Okay, so it looks like it does. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like 82 feet from Route 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deep lot. All right. Well, if you're comfortable, let me make the motion and.
Well, see if there's any public.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Is there anybody? I think it's just us.
I think we lost the public.
Just us gremlins.
All right. Planning board recommends approval of the site plan prepared by Stephen E. Stapinski, professional land surveyor, dated August 21st, 2025, and architectural plans prepared by Timothy Sheehan, registered architect, dated September 19th, 2025, with the following conditions, and there are three. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall electronically submit final floor plans and elevations stamped and signed by a registered architect, and the final site plan stamped and signed by a registered engineer or land surveyor to the director for regulatory planning or a designee for review and approval. Condition 2, future conversions to habitable space shall be no greater than the applicant's representation of the intended amount of for future conversion, and there's none indicated. And condition 3, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall electronically submit to the building commissioner for review and approval, A, the floor plan, site plan, and elevation displaying the approval stamp of the Director for Regulatory Planning, and B, evidence that the Board of Appeals decision has been obtained from the town clerk's office by the applicant or their representative and recorded at the Registry of Deeds. Do I have a second?
Second.
I heard Mark go first. So Mark,
Aye.
Tommy,
Aye.
Blair,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Andrea,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. All right,
That's it.
922, not terrible.
All
Not
right.
great for only 3 cases, but
Yeah, yeah. Well, that the
We
middle
got our,
one
we
was
got
a
our
lot of
money's worth on
conversation.
one of
Yeah.
them.
Mine was